love movies, but like cars, I just want them one at a time, not a dealership. And no, actually, I don't think it hasn't been very difficult, not for us, because first of all, it's a relationship business, and it's actually a very small group of players in the set of industries we operate. And if you're at it for long enough, you get a chance to build trust and familiarity, and they understand, one party understands better what the other party can do. I mean, generally, we like situations where we can bring something other than capital, because those are one would expect a lower return. Hulu is a good example. When Fox and NBC decided to create Hulu, they did not need our capital. GE, especially then, I'll stop there, didn't need capital, and neither did News Corp, but they were expecting, I think with good reason, that we could bring something other than money to bear.
And so, what was that? Just, you mean media expertise? And
well, yes. I mean, those early conversations, we did not need to be convinced of, in our minds, the wisdom, the motivation for forming Hulu. And I'm not saying that now because it's done well, because going back a few years, nearly everyone thought we were nuts to make that investment.
And it was, am I correct in when I said earlier that it's sort of a different type of investment for you? Because it's not a typical private equity investment, is it?
Well, it's not typical for a large fund to make a small investment in a startup. And we do occasionally knowingly invest in startups. We have restarts too, but just not including those. But this seemed compelling to us because we, as a specialist, we think like industry players. And what keeps a traditional media company up at night? It is digital distribution. It is the internet. It may be wonderful for consumers. It is. It would drive the greatest franchise, the stewards of some of the greatest media franchises in the world, crazy. What to do in the face of this totally destabilizing technology and changing consumer behavior. So where we would sit around thinking, gosh, we hadn't invested, we'd done very little in newspapers for 20 years, very little in television, but we would think about, and what held us back were the challenges of a completely new model for distribution.
Right.
And in the case of Hulu, just to stay on point, the issue was if every content player has their own solution, it will not work. Only folks in LA and New York and in this industry has any idea who made what picture, what primetime show, and it's too much to ask a consumer to know who created it and then go find it.
Right.
So the question was really, can we get the traditional media players to work together to create one site? And then the second vital piece was, can we create an engine that would produce an acceptable consumer experience so that it would become a destination site? And by the way, none of that would we take credit for. Absolutely none of it. That was management who did a great job building that engine. And the content players, this is professionally generated content. We have 1,000 of the more than of primetime shows. That's where the money is. It's not in YouTube.
So was this the only type of investment you made like that? And you just
No.
Okay.
No, the Yes Network, we had, we bought the rights to broadcast the Yankees and Nets. And pains me to say this, I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan. That's big, I couldn't admit that a few years ago.
So the enemies, you're making money from the enemy.
Yeah, well, you can root for the Red Sox, but you could bet on the Yankees.
Well, those are the highest rated games, though. That can be your justification.
It's a huge, well,
right?
It's the largest market. and it's an incredible franchise, no matter where you're from.
But what I was asking about Hulu, actually, Jonathan, not to belabor this, is that you're only sort of dipping into that new media business that actually competes a lot against your other holdings?
No, we've done it elsewhere. We've done it in the education space, where we have both facilities-based for-profit education and companies that are 100% online.
Okay. Dave, I want to switch back to you. And you know, I guess what you guys look for are mature companies typically with cash flows, predictable cash flows, things that you can understand. You know, what makes a company attractive? And it seems, you know, we just had Tim Armstrong in here from AOL. Wouldn't that be a very attractive company for Silver Lake to buy?
I'll skip the second question. But generally what we look for are businesses that are very good technology at its core, because that's hard. That turns out to be very difficult to replicate. You can replicate sales easily. Distribution is oftentimes easy to get in a digital world, but really good underlying technologies, it's hard to build and it's hard to replicate. So that's the first thing. Second thing we look for is a business model that's pretty predictable and scalable. And then we typically have an opportunity to invest not when everyone thinks it's the best thing in the world and it's trading for 100 times revenue, but we get to invest when there's some broad-based misunderstanding. They're late on a product cycle, but it's still a good business. They've got a bad manager, but it's still a good business. The economy's down like it is right now, but it's still a good business. Those are all great opportunities for us.
And so, wouldn't AOL fit that bill?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it does, but could.
Okay.
Yeah, we never, you know, I mean, we, like Jonathan, never get.
Yeah, I would say, just to help out Dave here, if you thought it were
John
great,
hasn't
maybe
been
you're
if you
looking
thought
at
it were
AOL.
great, or I thought it was a great idea, despite the candor that you requested, we would never reveal that here, right?
Okay.
But you should ask.
Yeah, fair to ask.
And I will.